Welcome to the Faithful Five podcast. And today I am joined by Ed Caruso, who is a Brooklyn born but longtime native of the Philadelphia area. Italian, if you can't tell the last name with Caruso. And also a small business owner, has owned an insurance business for how many years have you been running?
Almost 37 in October.
Okay,
37
37.
years. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's unbelievable. Makes us feel old. So thank
Uh,
you for joining us today. Let's jump right in. Talk a little bit about at what point in your life did faith start to play a role? Did something trigger it? And has it started, stopped, gained momentum, lost momentum, like most of us? Just give us a little background on when it started to play a bigger role in your life.
um, and it's for me, I think there's definitely been a difference between faith and religion. Religion played a part of, my life, especially childhood growing up. But by saying it played a part of my life was, you know, my mom especially would take me to mass every week. You know, uh, First communion, confession, um, confirmation, all those things. Became an altar boy, mostly because I was told this is what you should do. Would sit in mass, would go to CCD, and just kind of went through the motions. Didn't really have an appreciation for what was going on. Obviously, holidays and big family dinners just based around, the religious holidays, Christmas, Easter, things like that. But, never thought about it. Never, it was a lack of a better word. It was routine. I grew up whole life, grammar school, high school, public school. And oddly enough, decided to go to a small Catholic college. I went to Mount St. Mary's College down in Maryland. And, chose them out not because of its religious background, just it looked like it'd be a really fun place to go. And it was. But, now you're really surrounded by your religion. And, now I'm taking classes on theology and things like that. Everything we did there, every monumentous occasion that would happen there would be a mass around it, whether it was the inauguration of class officers or getting our rings junior year. Uh, my girlfriend, for most of my time, would drag me to mass almost every day. Uh, there
Yeah.
was mass in our freshman dorm, Father Five. Mass maybe lasted 15 minutes. So, you started going, 15 minutes. Yeah, it's worth going. And I think so and obviously you're at a Catholic college, you're also surrounded by people that are, I'm not saying devout Christians, but where religion is playing a part in their life. Obviously, that was important to them. Now, most of my friends in school, went to parochial schools, went to Catholic high schools and things like that. But it was, slowly becoming a bigger part of my life. You know, in college, you can do whatever you want, but I'm going to mass because now I want to, not because I'm being forced to, not because I'm being dragged to mass.
Right. Right.
So that played a big part, of still not completely getting everything, but definitely having a deeper understanding and a deeper connection at that point.
So dig a little deeper, because that's an interesting, because I think a lot of people have this perception of faith being, going to church. I say that all the time. And obviously you were cradle Catholic and you just explained that. But like, what is the difference between being, faith and religion? You highlighted a couple differences there. Like for you today, I mean, obviously going to church is important, but talk a little bit about why, faith is something completely different.
Again, it's me. Religion was, like you said, you're a cradle Catholic. What are you? You're Catholic. what religion are you? Catholic, and you kind of understand what that means. But I think your faith becomes more, we talk about when we we do our gospel studies on Friday. And, you use it, I try to read Jesus Calling every morning. So to me, part of that faith is I'm thinking about God every day. And maybe also a big difference is not just when I think I need him. Whereas, reading that book or when we do the gospel studies or even when you go to mass, you're feeling his presence more. To me, that's part of my faith is feeling his presence, understanding, the gospel. The biggest thing I've gotten out of our Friday morning readings is now we read the gospel and I get it. It's not just, the last thing the last big thing the priest does before we get ready for communion, which is starting to signal the end of the mass. So it's like my mindset attending a mass is much different. Whereas before gospel was okay, gospel, communion, and then we're leaving. Now I understand it. You're understanding the message. And actually, I don't always understand it.
Right.
But because of what we do on Friday mornings, I have an opportunity to understand.
Yeah. And we'll talk about what you do on Fridays. Talk a little bit about, that's a great description, by the way. Just trying to be in touch with God a little more. That's a great description of faith. Your most influential person, people, in your life, and did they shape a role in your faith? Obviously, who you are as a person, and what role did they play?
Still my mom is probably a big part of that. My dad was Catholic, but he was not a, go to mass every week like my mom was. My mom really believed in her faith, really followed her faith, was important to her. Even, my mom suffered from dementia. Uh, and even when a lot of other things maybe started to go, not recognizing many people, she still wanted to go to mass every Sunday. It was still really important to her. So really important to her to still receive communion. So even as her mind was slipping away, she still had that connection somehow. Whereas it's hard to believe that so many other things, she used to love to she couldn't do a crossword puzzle anymore. She couldn't answer questions on a game show, but she still somehow felt that connection. Some of my friends from school, from college, were much more, would push me to go to mass. Let's say we were away at the beach for a weekend, we would still go on Sunday. So people like that mattered a lot. I don't know if it's just been one person. Believe it or not, we had college chaplain when I got to Mount St. Mary's. His first year there was my freshman year.
You mentioned that you're part of a Friday reflection group, which is a bunch of guys talking about their faith, and you've been doing that, I think, a long time. So talk about what that, does for you, means to you, how it has, I assume, helped you talk about your faith with others, that kind of stuff.
I mean, there's a few things involved, or a few things that I find a great appreciation when we meet on Fridays. The biggest is, even well into my adult life, going to mass and hearing the gospel, if it was a familiar gospel, maybe having some familiarity with it, but never really getting what was being said, never really getting the message that, I was supposed to be getting. Now it helps that we have two deacons, and we've had a lot of scholarly guys in our group. Sometimes I can read the gospel, and because we're reading it and we're talking about it, I'm having a much better comprehension already. But having people there that really maybe have a deeper understanding of it, or what was going on in Jesus's life when this point of the gospel occurred, and even giving us background, helps tremendously to understand that gospel. And so when we finish it and we talk about it, we always have action items to do from it, and it's usually just about trying to practice your faith more. It is a huge help. It's really understanding what we're reading makes a big difference.
But
So much
and
so that,
so,
go ahead.
sorry to interrupt you, but you touch on something there, and I don't know whether you're giving yourself credit, but part of that, yes, it's great to have a deacon or someone, or we all have friends that are really well versed on the faith, for lack of a better term, but your connection to Jesus or the Holy Spirit helps you open some of those doors as well, right? Your insight now that you're kind of, like you said in the beginning, you try to be a little more connected. Does that play a role too?
I would say, I mean, it's both things. It's
Right. Oh,
that's
yeah.
enabling me to be more connected, and which then, I think I can add more than I could 6 or 7 years ago.
So talk a little bit about obstacles. Why do you think faith is such a struggle sometimes for men? A, to live it, B, to let alone live it, but talk about it. Any thoughts there?
Um,
It's not an easy question, I realize.
I think in general, most people's faith, it's a phrase we use, your faith is tested. Um, I've been divorced now about 25, 26 years. Going through divorce in the Catholic Church is not easy. Test your faith. Had a couple of things, when I would take my daughters to CCD and kind of, not really welcome if they couldn't be there every week. It was kind of a turnoff. And I definitely pulled away a little bit. And, luckily I had, family and friends that, helped to pull me back, but it was really, a struggle, and especially when you're trying to teach lessons to your, young children. So yeah, it was a struggle, but people helped bring me back, and then starting to have a deeper appreciation of things um, has helped with that. There's why you look at suffering in the world, or you look at when you lose a friend at a young age, or you look at when people are going through any of the things they're going through. I think the difference of how I look at things now is maybe I would have looked at it 20 years ago. Is I don't think that's quote testing my faith. If anything, that strengthens my faith. That's when I need my faith even more. Sometimes when things are really getting to you, um, reading a passage from Jesus calling, or just having a couple moments to yourself, and just thanking God. It sounds sounds unlikely, but it does settle me. I think anybody that can do that, I think it does settle you.
Final question. Biggest myth, best advice, tip, um, to other guys that you might have that are either, maybe they're divorced, maybe they're just getting married, maybe they're just having kids. I always talk about those reflection points in life, or they're struggling with a personal demon, whatever it is. You know, any advice or tips or things to help them overcome those challenges?
You know, for me, it's find faith where you can find it. If some days it's just reading some kind of daily reflection, if it's taking a couple of minutes, maybe it's as simple as still saying grace before your meals. Something small. Start small. It took me a long time. When you first started inviting me to these meetings, I maybe came once every few weeks. Now I can't imagine missing one unless I really can't make it. Uh, Start small. You'd be surprised how much you've probably been living more of a life of faith than you realize. Yes, we went through the motions when we were younger, especially as children, but you'll start to think about your first communion, your confirmation, all these things, and they'll probably have a little bit greater meaning now. Actually, they'll definitely have a greater meaning now.
What you said there at the end, start small, it can be anything. I find, I don't forget what the term was, find the faith somewhere and, run with it. So I think that's very profound.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate your time, Edward. Thanks for joining us
Anytime.
today. And we look forward to chatting with you again soon. Appreciate you taking the
All
time.
right, sounds good. Thanks, TC.